Welcome to Step 6, Bridge the Gap that Advances Forward Progress. Hi, my name is Joey Yarber, and I'm your co-host of this empowering training series. We're grateful that you took time to take your next step in learning how to transform lives and your community. In Step 6, you'll learn that your transformation journey will encounter many obstacles that stand in the way of forward progress. These gaps must be bridged or your journey will fall short of expectations. Building bridges does take time, but once constructed, they make travel easier for many explorers for generations to come. Let's get started. Here's Mike.
Your key challenge is to be bold and courageous in addressing the obstacles that stand in your way of forward progress. These can be outdated traditions or irrelevant ways of doing things that prevent stakeholders from exploring innovative ways of thinking and acting. These can be the fear of change, the lack of trusting relationships, and organizational silos that fragment communities and cooperation. Your action steps will include being tenacious about your advocacy for care networking and its value and benefits. You will also need not to let up in encouraging helping agencies, businesses, and others to work together for common good and greater impact. And do not let naysayers cripple your vision and your efforts to build capacity for collective community impact. Your measurable results will be a clearer path that many stakeholders can move forward on toward comprehensive, coordinated care. Step 6, along with Steps 4 and 5, are designed to increase cooperation among helping agencies in your community. Once you reach Step 6, you will notice that the walls that separate organizational silos are beginning to come down. Your care network will clearly demonstrate to connective agencies that there are others in your community who are interested and engaged in helping others. This awareness will open many stakeholders' eyes to the potential and possibilities of care networking. But your work is not finished. There are still gaps to be bridged. I want to make you aware of the top 10 gaps that need to be bridged so that your journey keeps moving forward. These gaps must and can be bridged over time. This will depend upon your progress in building a better together civic culture in your community. Gap 1 is about authentic, trusting relationships. These are the bedrock of building capacity for a better together civic culture in your community. Without trusting relationships, you will be limited, if not able, to create or strengthen community partnerships that drive collective action. We encourage you to take time to really get to know other stakeholders in your community. When you meet with them, treat them with the same respect and compassion as you want to be treated. Be open, honest, and truly listen to others. Always tell the truth and keep your word. A lack of this will cause your trust account with others to be drained. And once it's drained, it is much harder to make deposits to this account. Never use gossip to build relationships, or people will wonder what you are saying about them. Always manage your emotions, and do not let pride or a prejudiced attitude get the best of you. I like what Stephen Covey said about trust. He said that trust is the glue of life. It is the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. Gap 2 is a failure to communicate a clear, concise, and compelling vision of possibilities that most people want and will help make happen. I have learned that if people can see it, they can be it. If you give people an exciting and inviting picture of a worthwhile destination and a simple roadmap to follow, most people will make the journey without hesitation. But I've also learned that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. If people see your passion for helping others and resonate with your sincere concern for agency challenges, this builds credibility for your vision and mission. You can bridge gap number 2 by having a good understanding of the needs of people, the needs of agencies that serve them, and the challenges that impact your whole community. Gap number 3 is about failure to awaken your community stakeholders to current realities that need immediate attention. When making presentation to community stakeholders, I sometimes present them with research about poverty and hunger in their own community. Some people are shocked and cannot believe that this is happening. This reminds me of a story I once heard from a community stakeholder who was the executive director of a local food bank. He told me that he was interviewed by a local newspaper reporter about food insecurity in their community. He told the reporter that the food bank distribution was over 1 million pounds of food to people each year. When the article came out in the newspaper, the food bank executive was shocked. The article reported only half of the amount of food distributed. The food bank executive called the reporter, who said that he really did not believe this enormous amount of food was being distributed in the community. So he simply adjusted the figures on his own. We have learned that most communities struggle at waking up their sleeping giants. These can be the community sectors that have the power and potential for making things happen, but for whatever reasons fail to engage in collective community impact. Gap number 4 is about a lack of communication and cooperation among diverse helping agencies. As I mentioned before, most communities are plagued with isolation and fragmentation. A community stakeholder once told me that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. Duplication is out of control. Valuable resources are being wasted, and community safety nets have wide gaping holes that allow children, adults, and families to fall through the cracks. Fortunately, our networking technology has proven successful for addressing this challenge. One survey showed that duplication was reduced by as much as 91%, and agency budgets realized 18% in annual savings. Not to pick on any one sector, but the faith-based sector has enormous potential for transforming people's lives. I am most familiar with this sector, having worked in it for many years. The reality is that churches are the largest repository of local community resources or assets. These include caring power that is embedded with a tremendous amount of compassion and mercy. Churches have the largest labor force in most communities. Churches are rich in social capital, which makes it easier for people to work together for common good. Churches are the largest repository of community, a place for people to belong and experience meaningful relationships. Churches are the largest repository of financial giving in the form of charitable contributions. I showed this to a group of ministers one day. They were shocked, to say the least. They could not believe that so many resources were tied up in churches across Alabama. What really got them was that over a 10-year period, $13 trillion were available to churches. I do not think we would have much problem in addressing poverty and hunger in Alabama, if we want to. Just imagine what would happen if all the churches in a community would be a good and friendly neighbor to all households in their neighborhood, and provide outreach programs and services to all families in the shadow of their steeple, and then work collectively with other churches and helping agencies to effectively address community challenges. The results would be amazing. We are encouraged that communities across the country are bridging gap number 4 by launching care networks, and in many communities, churches are leading the effort. Gap number 5 is about failure to get powerful, influential, and well-respected community leaders involved. These stakeholders have the power to advocate for change and can influence others to get behind the effort. They can be quite effective at championing the cause and identifying those who can energize and accelerate the movement. But getting them involved will require that you prove to them that the risks, responsibilities, and the rewards are well worth the effort. As I mentioned in step number 2, the acceptance of new ideas is perceived in different ways by different people. Not everyone will instantly grasp what you are saying about your journey toward comprehensive coordinated care. We have discovered that innovation or new ideas go through progressive stages of acceptance over time, and different kinds of people, including their personalities, can impact their acceptance as well. You will encounter people who will say, "Let's go for it." Others will say, "Let's wait and see what others will do." And there will be those who will say, "It will never work." I also mentioned in an earlier session that transformation is an organic and intentional process. Some things will happen naturally on their own, while other things require strategic planning and self-motivated action. To bridge gap number 5, we encourage you to develop an ongoing communication campaign that will reach across your community. Coordinate catalyst gatherings where people can engage in catalyst conversations. Also, be encouraged that many care networks across the country start out as grassroots movement and then over time are adopted as grass tops level of engagement. We are starting to get more and more interest from regional hospitals and city and county governments that want to launch care networks in their communities. Gap number 6 is about the inability to remove obstacles that stand in the way of forward progress. One of these is the fear of change. Do not get discouraged by encounters with people who are uncomfortable with change. Some people cling hard to their habits and routines. Others fear that change will undermine their control of situations or diminish their authority, power, or stature. People must be assured that they are not losing their autonomy and can keep pursuing their own special interests and mission. Another obstacle is outdated traditions and a heavy grasp on status quo, which says, "We have never done it that way before." These can block innovative thinking and acting. We encourage you to treat your steps toward transformation as experiments in change, progress, and growth. This will help not to back people into a corner, forcing them to react unfavorably. Instead, many will respond with cautious optimism and say, "I know changes are involved, but I am willing to give them a chance and see what happens." Bridge gap number 6 with one-on-one warm and friendly conversations or small group presentations which address these concerns and calm people's fears. Gap number 7 is about the inability to transform a community's overall helping system from a social service to a social change model. Communities plagued by fragmentation and siloed service gaps will never be able to move the needle on complex challenges. Social service models are a single-focused and isolated approach to helping others. These models often lack the resourceful and holistic investments, plus meaningful caregiving that are needed to transform people's lives. A social change model is made effective by a community-focused approach to helping others, where all helping agencies, regardless of resources, can be part and parcel of comprehensive coordinated care. This model can be implemented with great success, but only if a whole community is willing to get involved and make it happen. Bridge gap number 7 by launching and growing a care network. In addition, develop a powerful care collaborative that maximizes the collective caring power of your community. Gap number 8 is about a lack of strategic planning and then working the plan. And it is about community stakeholders failing to take time to be open and honest as to why things are not working. Wishing and hoping that things will happen is a lot different than putting into place strategic plans that make things happen. Transformation usually fails when stakeholders are more comfortable thinking and talking, rather than constantly planning and doing. John Cotter, an expert in change management, suggests, "Real transformation takes time, and a renewal effort risks losing momentum. if there are no short-term goals to meet and celebrate. Most people won't go on the long march unless they see compelling evidence within 12 to 24 months that the journey is producing expected results. Without short-term wins, too many people give up or actively join the ranks of those people who have been resisting change. When you first launch your care network, make sure you get as many stakeholders and helping agencies involved in 12 to 24 months. Be tenacious about reaching out to helping agencies in different community sectors. Be diligent about pursuing financial resources that support your communication campaign and your ability to coordinate catalyst gatherings. Simply put, keep planning and doing. And if you feel like this is too much for you alone to handle, then enlist the support of friends, co-workers, or volunteers from other helping agencies to accomplish your commonly shared goals and objectives. Gap number 9 is about failing to create an empowering context where people, especially innovators, can connect, learn from each other, and collaborate for the well-being of others. Most communities have little or no context for change agents or visionary leaders to get together and develop hopes and dreams. I remind you that in this context, conversations are less about what's wrong and how to fix it, and more about what's possible and who cares enough to act. Bridge gap number 9 by orchestrating catalyst gatherings and learning conversations. I like what Dr. Melba McGay suggests. Sociologists tell us that it takes only 5% of a community's population to turn society around and put it back on course. Social renewal begins when the strategic minority hears the call of a new order, catches a vision of what is possible, and gives their all to the birth of a coming world. I believe a new revolutionary movement of innovative caregivers is happening across the country. New best practices are now being developed that can transform lives and communities. This can happen in any community where those who help others will simply work together and strive for collective community impact. Gap number 10 is about the failure to create a better together civic culture that invites broader community engagement, supports innovation, and allows collective community impact to emerge. We have discovered that some care networks get started with much enthusiasm, but later fail to grow. This happens because the administrator of the care network gets sidetracked by the everyday task and the responsibilities of their own organization. They may have good intentions, but we are learning that good intentions are oftentimes simply not good enough. They presume that their care network would naturally grow on its own, and in some cases it does. However, we've discovered that intentional processes must be in place to make sure that the network grows and expands its outreach throughout the community. These processes include communication and awareness campaigns, catalyst gatherings, and the development of a cross-sector care collaborative undergirded by a new catalytic infrastructure. A better together civic culture must be alive and active throughout the whole community for broader civic engagement and transformation to take place. These will help bridge gap number 10. Rich Harwood, the president of Harwood Institute for Public Innovation, suggests, understanding and strengthening a community civic culture is as important to collective efforts as using data, metrics, and measuring outcomes. A weak civic culture undermines the best intentions and the most rigorous of analysis and plans. For change to happen, trust and community ownership must form. People need to engage with one another, and we need to create the right underlying conditions and capacities for change to take root and spread. You can bridge gap number 10 by progressively taking each step that leads to the development of a new catalytic infrastructure that supports transformation and stands the test of time. May I suggest that a better together civic culture will profoundly impact people's lives and your community, and you might end up writing new and exciting chapters in your community's history. We will take a deeper look at the new catalytic infrastructure in step number 8.
Hey, thanks, Mike. We always talk about the ability of our solution to put everyone on the same page at the same time. But there's something to be said about getting everyone in the same room at the same time as you have those community conversations. Now, more than likely, you won't be able to get everyone, all the stakeholders to do this, but you will be able to get a sizable amount. And really, that's all you need to do to get one thing that is an essential part of the collaboration started. And that's creating interest in what each other does to help, what kind of resources and services that they may provide. Ask each stakeholder to share info with the group about their agency, what they do. Many times we hear from agencies that they're surprised, they're astounded as to how many other things that an agency does. A lot of times we hear that one agency didn't even know that another agency provided that service or that help. Other times hearing what another agency does really helps to create an atmosphere of cooperation and desire to work together. Imagine being able to do that now in real time with Charity Tracker. We've learned a lot about successful implementation from our partners in Huntsville, Alabama. They do it right. In those community conversations, there is an opportunity for each one of the agencies to share information, talk about what they do. We find that people want to work together much more when they know the work that another agency is doing. Putting everyone in the same room at the same time helps to put everyone on the same page at the same time moving forward. In our next session entitled Step 7, Map Out Successful Pathways to the Summit, we'll explore what it will take to move the needle on poverty, hunger, and other complex community challenges. Thanks so much for taking time to explore this transformative knowledge. For more information about this training series, you can give us a call at area code 256-764-0633 or email to joey@simonsolutions.com or mike@simonsolutions.com. We're honored that you are part of this training series.